Okay, we decided to play around and do some cooking tapes. This is a recipe that I got from Diana Kennedy on her show, The Art of Mexican Cooking. And for this recipe, what we need is a pound of flour. There we go, 1 pound. Alright, a pound of flour gets dumped into my mixing bowl. And you need a 1/4 pound of Crisco. Now sometimes I mix different things with the Crisco. Sometimes I'll mix 2 ounces of Crisco and 2 ounces of bacon fat. Sometimes I'll use all bacon fat, a liquid vegetable oil rather than Crisco in the solid form. But as I've been experimenting, I found that I like the way that Crisco makes the dough feel because it comes out nice and crumbly. Crisco into the flour. Alright. Now that you got that in there, you work it with your hands until it looks like it's coarse cornmeal. I don't know whether it's better to have the Crisco warmed up. I think it's definitely better to have the bacon fat warmed up. So if you're going to weigh out 2 ounces of bacon fat and 2 ounces of Crisco, I'd let the bacon fat come to room temperature, because sometimes when you're mixing this you can just feel the bacon fat just staying too cold and not really mixing up very well. The way Diana Kennedy says it should be is it should be like dried breadcrumbs, and you can see it's almost getting to be like that. See how that's starting to look? As Diana Kennedy suggests that you add some wheat gluten, probably about a heaping teaspoon. Okay, I got that mixed up and it looks pretty good. See? Alright, it's not hot but lukewarm, so I got 1 cup of water right there, and in that I'm going to dissolve 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix up the salt, and I'm going to pour in water into the bowl. Now, I'm not going to pour it in all at one time. I'm just going to pour in, about that much. So I've got about, a 1/3 of a cup left almost. And I'm just going to start mixing this. Now, you can see at first it looks really blah and nasty, but you just got to be a little bit patient with it and work it. And your hands, like right now, it's real sticking to my hands, see? But you just keep working it. I will add some more water, but I'm going to wait until I get this a little bit more worked, because there's still quite a bit of dry stuff in here. See, still some dry stuff in there. So I'm going to work this as much as I can before I add more water. I think I've worked this about as much as I can with this. I've got to add some more water, and we'll just kind of dribble it around. Okay, I think we're good enough where I can set this out on the tabletop. See how dry it still is? So I'm going to have to add some more water. But I want to make sure that I work this around quite a bit. Okay, it looks pretty dry, so I'm going to add a dab more water here. I did. Now I'm going to try to keep working it until I get it to the shape I like it. Alright. You can probably hear the moisture in it. But it's starting to feel like it's going to work out pretty good. And usually I work it for 4 or 5 minutes, or until I think it feels just right. But you see, you'll notice like my hands are starting to get cleaner. Yeah, it's working pretty nice. Yeah, feels better now. And you can see my hands are dry. See? If it was too wet, it'd be sticking all over my hands. But this dough is feeling nice. See, look. This stuff is looking pretty good. What do you think of that? I think it's nice and pliable. This is a pastry cutter. Kind of divide it. And if you can see what the inside of that looks like, how nice that is. Okay, then what you do is you cut it into size of tortillas you want. There's 1, there's 2. And now what you need to do is you need to roll these puppies so you get them in a little bit of a ball. And just kind of roll them up, roll them, roll them, roll them, roll them, roll them and toss them, roll them and toss them. And it takes a couple, half a minute or so, and you should have it. See? That looks real good, both of them. Then what you need to do is take a sheet tray, and you just put a little bit of flour on the bottom of the sheet tray. Just not a whole lot, just a little bit, just to give it some movement. And you just put your tortilla balls on your plate. Alright, 13 tortillas done. See them? Now I need to cover them with a towel. these need to sit and rest for about 2 hours. Hasn't quite been 2 hours since I started making these tortillas, but now they've sat in the tray for a couple hours, and there they are. So what I'm going to do now is I got the hot plate going. I'm going to roll out the tortillas, and I'm going to make some tortillas. We want to try to make them round, and as you can see, that's rolling out very, very nicely. So you'll just have to sit there and watch. And again, if I had somebody else taking movies, it'd be a lot easier. But this is a doll that my Uncle Butch made for me. Pretty neat, ain't it? He says it's something that my grandma Eulalia used to use. Something similar to it. But you can see how nice these are rolling out. I'm not putting any flour down. It's just the tortilla dough. Now, one of the things that's supposed to happen when you put these on the grill is they're supposed to puff up. But I haven't had much luck in those over the years, so I don't worry about it. But the idea is that you put these on the hot comal, which is that. It's called a hot comal. And you let it heat up. Now the comal that I'm using is also something that I got from one of my uncles, and I think it was my Uncle Vern, and he made it at the steel mill, and it's actually steel. So we'll just set that on there. And this really goes quickly. I mean, you only want to cook these things on each side for maybe 15 or 20 seconds, not very long. By the time you got one halfway rolled out, it's time to flip the other one that's already on there. You can see it's looking pretty good. See? Nice tortilla. Boring, isn't it? Making another tortilla. Let's just go buy them. Well, because there's part of the ancestral heritage going on here. I mean, my grandmother, my dad's mom, when she was a little girl, got sent away from her home in Mexico to go work in a mine, or actually a kitchen where the miners worked in Texas. And when she was a little girl, 13 years old, this is what she did every day in order to make a living. 13. Instead of playing Nintendo or all these other games, my grandma was making tortillas. So part of me sitting here making tortillas is heritage. Hey, that one's starting to bubble up. Look, see the bubbles? That's what's supposed to happen. So maybe the comal, the hot plate, is where it should be, because I see little bubbles popping up. And that looks really good and hot. That one's bubbling up. Oh man, these are looking good. I bet even Kristen would try one of these. Look at that. See it bubbling up? Good tortillas, nice and hot. Ouch. Hot. Oh, this is a pretty tortilla. Okay, what do you think? Alright, now this is what Diana Kennedy used to do, and I haven't done this very often, but she suggests that you take this out and stretch it. And I haven't really tried this too often, because I don't often put gluten in it. But you can see it's stretching out pretty good. Oh, it just ripped there. And I'm just stretching it as Diana Kennedy suggests. Yep, ripped again. I probably didn't add enough gluten to it because it's ripping. You see it? Alright, it's ripping all over the place. So maybe I didn't add enough gluten. So maybe on this recipe, rather than adding a teaspoon of gluten, I'll try adding more. Because see, look, maybe I'm pulling too hard. I don't know, but like I said, I haven't tried this very often. But these tortillas look very good. Okay, this one's going on the comal. We're going to wait for it to bubble up. It's going to bubble up here pretty soon. Oh, there it goes. See it bubbling? That means it's good. Whoops. Look at that bubbling up. Hot. Dog, I made a good tortilla. Let's flip it. Look at that. Oh man, does that look good? I think it's done. Ouch, it's hot. And it's sticking. There it goes. That one's done.